What is going on, everybody? BobbyFi. I'm here doing a solo PGA first look for this weekend. And we're going to just quickly go through my lineups, talk about some of my favorite plays. I still have a lot of whittling and some more research to do. It's only Tuesday. I've also been trying to get caught up on MLB, which I can't wait for. And we've only got a couple more days, guys. So that's pretty exciting. I really can't wait for that. But I'm also excited about this week. I feel like it's going to be a very, very high variance week. I think you've got guys who are going to be out of nowhere who could easily win this tournament. This is not the strong field we've seen. This is a birdie making bonanza. I'm expecting we're going to see what we saw the first 3 weeks, 4 weeks more so than last week. And we're going to want some bombers out there. So I'm focusing a lot on the young guys in the field. That's sort of what I'm doing. I'm going to share my screen real quick, give you guys a quick idea of some of the things I've been looking at. So basically, guys who really stood out to me. And look, again, I'm going to have to fine tune my ownership percentages, but this is where I'm at this moment. You're probably going to see me closer to maybe around 40% Glover overall. I still like other players a little bit more I'm sort of debating depending on ownership. If Homo really does stay low owned, I might just go for a huge shot on him. I love Patrick Rogers too at projected low ownership right now, so I'm trying to be well over the field on those guys. I like Will Gordon, Chase Seifert, not exactly a young guy, but still fairly new to this type of play, I would say. Carlos Ortiz, another guy, Taylor Gooch. I'm probably going to end up with more Gooch and less Ortiz. I love Johnny Vegas for the upside in this tournament. I actually love all the South Africans. I love EVR, and I think on FanDuel, I'm going to give you one specific FanDuel play. I'm just going to say Brendan Grace at 7K is just a little bit ridiculous. It's a little different than the DK. DK is 7,500, and it's just 7K, the minimum price on FanDuel. I love that play. You can see I've got it in my 500 over there. Sort of debating back and forth what to do with DJ, Fleetwood, and Casey. My initial instincts were that Fleetwood was the one I wanted the most of. The more I started looking into it, I think if he uses this as a tune-up sort of to coming back, I'm a little bit scared. All things being equal, he would have been the guy I would have gone with, but I think that I might end up leaning more towards DJ, sort of forgetting the rounds last week. But at the same time, we saw that from everybody at different points, and just happened to him earlier. We also saw what happened, a few weeks back on a fairly easy course, and one that won't play exactly like this, but I do think that, you could look for more results like that. And there's really nobody in his range, like one of these other young guys could come out of nowhere and sort of go nuts, or any of the other guys could play well, the Finaus, the Fleetwoods, all these guys. I just feel like the more I'm starting to think about it, I feel a little bit better about Dustin Johnson, and I'm probably not going to end up going to Koepka because he just looks off. He says his back's hurting, but he's still playing, which makes me kind of want to, because no, people are not going to go there. With the huge ownership on Finau, at that price, for a guy who doesn't win very much, I'm probably going to be below the field on Finau. I'll probably be near or above the field on Casey, which is a little weird. There's a price difference between the two of them. But it does feel weird because Finau also, Casey doesn't win all that much either. At least it's been a while since he has. But the guys I'm focusing on the most from this range, again, debating between Fleetwood and DJ as my main guys with Casey. Those are sort of the guys at the higher end. But mostly, I think you can play plenty of lineups without going over 9,700. You have Matt Wolff, the winner of this event last year in its inauguration. And I think a player like him, certainly grades out to do very well here. You're going to see ownership on him. The price is obviously really high when you get sticker shock, but look who we've got playing in this tournament. So I sort of like Wolff, even if the ownership, I have him around 20% right now. Maybe I'll probably end up a little bit higher if the ownership goes lower, and I'll probably end up being with the ownership if it stays in this range. That's sort of my current plan with him. Even at high ownership, probably going to be a little bit ahead of the field on Glover. It just makes sense to me. I feel very good about him. Again, when you get down to, who's more likely to win a tournament, he or Wolff? I actually think you say Wolff, but Glover just feels like such a safer play with probably that same upside to win the tournament. I think Glover has the 5th best odds to win the tournament, even though Wolff, you would think just off the top of your head, especially because he won this event, that he might be a little higher. But Glover actually, I think it comes in that 5th in the odds for who's the favorite to win, a guy who I wouldn't bet on to win the tournament outright, in that situation, because the odds aren't great. But I do think it definitely has an argument. You could use him as your highest spend up. those are my preferred two up here. Harris English would be next for me at 9K. I think he's a really, really solid play with enough upside to actually make a nice little push here. And I just think he grades out, well enough to where I feel good about him. And I think he's got upside. And again, not doesn't fit my young guns exactly, but I still like him quite a bit, even at 9K. And Redmond, another one who I'm sort of a little bit with the field on. This is what's happening to me in this range. I might end up going lower on Norlander so I can play more Burns, Redmond, English, and even some Luke List to get away from Norlander. But I'll probably just drop down to Rogers, maybe Brian Harmon a little bit instead. I like Norlander. I just think he's going to be pretty popular. And again, I don't think we can necessarily expect to see everything what we've seen every week. But I do feel nervous about fading a guy who's been that consistent. The price jump, sure, it's scary, but if it scares other people off, I'll probably jump. So I'm going to let ownership dictate a little bit on that one for me. I mentioned Sam Burns, another one of these young guns who I really, really like in this tournament, no matter what the field ends up at. Again, we need to know more about ownership as the week progresses, but is a guy I'll be way above the field on. I mentioned the other guys, but he's probably the guy I'll end up with the most of from let's say the 83 to 9K range. Right now it's looking like Sam Burns for me. Love the kid. Then I want to jump back right down to the other guy, Patrick Rogers, the other young guy who I really like. Again, you're getting weird prices on these guys, which I'm hoping keeps the ownership low on them, and I think it might. So I'm willing to take that shot on Patrick Rogers. Again, I don't mind Harmon at all. Hasn't been great recently, but I also think Will Gordon is another really solid play, another one of these young guys who could really play this course well. Probably going to have some ownership, but again, I'm not terribly worried about it. Scott Stallings is jumping out on projection systems. I think I prefer Gordon, but I'm definitely fine with mixing in a little bit of Stallings. Stallings, Armour, and Fratelli are all just fine by me. I guess I would prefer Stallings to the other two, but I don't really have a ton of interest in the other guys. Norin, fine. I do like Tyler Merritt a little bit. We can see what was happening before, we had the really tough course last week. This guy's been just super solid since the break. Hasn't gotten that win or anything, but 22-8. Made the cut at Travelers at least. Actually, I think he made the cut at RBC also. So he made the 4 previous cuts, did struggle the first 2, but then an 8 and a 22. Not a guy I mind going back to at 7,500. The price has not really jumped as much on him as it has some of the other fellas that we wanted to play in some of the ranges we talked about already. Brendan Grace, I'll save it for FanDuel. I do like Charlie Hoffman. I would prefer him over Howell, but I'm okay with Howell as well. Hoffman would be my preferred guy at this range. I don't mind taking a shot on Ryder, sort of poor man's version of how I feel about Sam Burns. I'm sorry, about Burns. I just feel like I don't know when to get this guy right exactly, but I do feel like there's some upside with him here. And, look, just finished 7th. I don't have like a great, incredible case. He's been, 2 out of 4 cuts since the break. Much tougher fields, much easier field. He's cheap. I could see him making a run towards the top 15, top 10, and that would be plenty at his price. Again, just sort of like the other guys, maybe a little bit better, I guess. I guess the Hoffman, even Wawrinski, I like a little bit. I haven't put him in a bunch of lineups yet, but I do think he's a guy I've got on my list to add to some. But not really a ton of interest. Sprinkles from some of these other guys and my big, large entry things. Adam Long, I could see getting into a little bit more than I have. In fact, I'm going to make a note on my list because I just want to look into him a little bit deeper. I haven't spent enough time on him this week. He's one of those guys. And then I'm not really loving this whole range down here. But again, I'm more than happy to take shots on what's going to be a highly variant tournament. Keith Mitchell's a guy I can expect potentially having double digits on. Just has some pretty good numbers, even though he hasn't played all that well. And I think in a course that's a little bit, tougher. I mean, he played really well at Memorial last week, by the way, which is odd because that's when no one was. But is a guy who can go out there, and I think he can put up a low enough number at 6,900. It is weird coming off of 22 that, at a really tough course, tough competition, that we could probably get him at reasonably low ownership here. Chisan Hadley, I'm okay with as well. I'm a little higher on Mitchell, so I would lean that way personally. I might have 1 or 2 Bramletts and some Von Taylors. Not really going towards anybody else right there. The next guy who you'll probably see me with a little bit. What's funny is I'm going to just note that I have to put Harry Higgs in a tournament because he's been so bad for me. And I'm just going to, even if it's just messing around and costing me $30 or something, I want to throw him into a millionaire lineup or 2. He's just been absolutely just, pretty dreadful. I mean, to be honest with you, he was shooting +8s when it wasn't even, when it was, you weren't going to be good at -2. So I'm sort of hoping he at some point finds the form he had a little bit earlier this year, and is a birdie maker, is a guy who can be good here, shouldn't have any ownership. I could see him sort of coming out of nowhere, sort of a first look, guy who I don't know how much I'll end up with of him, but I'm semi-interested. But, you can also probably get pretty low ownership, even though much more ownership on Cameron Davis. The guy's missed 4 cuts and sort of barely missing these cuts every time. It's sort of like a torture chamber every time you roster this guy. But the numbers look pretty good. Struggled around the greens. That shouldn't be a problem this week. So a guy who I can definitely get behind at 6,500. For some reason, my DraftKings has sort of chosen to freeze on me here. Cannot get away from. Maybe it's a sign. We just lock Cam Davis in and then we figure the rest out, right? Is that what my computer's trying to tell me? Because they won't let me close out of his screen. I mentioned Johnny Vegas before. I love him for this tournament. If you look at the odds of them winning the tournament based on some of the projection systems, he has one of the better odds of any of the players less than 8K, I would say. And I love EVR too. I mean, I mentioned I really am going to play. You can see my FanDuel line. I've got these 3 guys together: Grace, Van Rooyen, and Vegas, and still mixing around with the Ortiz, Johnson, KC mix, but trying to figure that one out. Do want some, of the guys who I want exposure to on the high end. I think that it's going to be just KC, Johnson, and Fleetwood that I focus on. But I might, in one higher buy-in lineup where I have a little bit of an off-the-board look, I might throw a Finau in there for maybe some safety, even if it's just somewhat perceived safety. It's just such a ridiculous high price to bet on him as your best golfer. And maybe we're coming off of him, really struggling after he looked like he was going to win me all the money last week. But yeah, just not quite as high on it as I was. Anyway, you can scroll down so you guys get sort of an idea of what I'm doing. Not playing fully as many this week. Probably going to play each of the 555s on each side, maybe 1 or 2 entries. I'm going to play some of the single entry 100, 200s, that kind of thing. Going to play 75 in the Millionaire Maker. Trying to save some funds for the baseball and football, and I'm sorry, not football, hopefully basketball coming up. But you can sort of see where I'm at on a lot of these guys. And again, the ownerships are going to change a little bit. Just wanted to give you sort of a feel for where I'm at as of this moment. You can see a sprinkling is of a lot of guys because I think this is a really high variance spot, and I want to find some of the off the board plays that I feel like I can really get there with. I don't know if I mentioned Chase Seaford. I really like him at 7K. Thagala, I probably will end up with near 10% because I just believe in the kid's long-term talent and trying to get early on these guys before they really go nuts. So that's sort of where I'm at, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this. This is just a first look. We'll be back with sheets tomorrow, giving you our final breakdown, who we're playing, who we like, who we don't. And, guys, if you have any questions or thoughts, put them up on the YouTube channel, put them up on our Twitter, and happy to hear from you anytime. Thanks so much for tuning in. Please give us the like and subscribe, and look forward to talking to you guys soon. Let's go PGA, and let's go baseball soon. See you at the top of the leaderboards, guys.